Hey guys, this is John in Los Angeles with the Apple Channel update for Sunday, October 13th, 2024. We are going to start off with Hakur Haldersson's Yggdrasil deck today because we're going through these and they're pretty awesome. Today is Irpa, Diligence, and Resourcefulness. He gets pretty esoteric with some of these cards, and there is still a few very famous characters we have not seen yet that I'm kind of waiting for. So, Irpa, Diligence, and Resourcefulness. It's really kind of all you need. And along those lines, I had a hard time kind of deciding which comic we were going to look at today. I'm going to show you some of the ones that I went through. Something is Killing the Children, that 9/8 that we opened a couple days ago. I'm going to flash a couple pages in this because it is going to help me make my point. And I do have a point for today. There's something I want to talk about. This is also a Jenny Frison cover. And this is We Only Find Them When They're Dead. Kind of like Something is Killing the Children, these long sentence, long titles. And I really like the way this is colored and penciled. I love the bright colors. I love the sharp, cartoony features of the characters. We will go through this. I do want to get this whole series. I think this is a complete series at like 18 books. This, I saw today, is up to 40 books. They're going on 5 years. Congratulations, Boom Comics, Werther Dell'Edera, and James Tynan. I also wanted to look at She Could Fly. I only have one of these. This is a Dark Horse book. And this is not the one we choose to look at today, but the reason it's relevant is right here. And I was a little abrupt the other day when I said there haven't been good comics since 2001. It's not fair. But the average comic in 2001 was good. This is Sync number 6. We're not going to look at this until I get 4 and 5. A while back I threw away Sync number 3 for a good reason. And it won't prevent me from doing 4, 5, and 6, but we won't do number 3. This is like, these are standalone horror, sort of pocket horror stories centered around Glasgow, Scotland. I also looked at King Conan, and luckily I have 2 of these. This is King Conan number 1. I love this splash page. This is Thomas and Buscema with Ernie Chan doing the embellishing. And check this out. This is a great double page spread that lays out the story as it is, and I want you to tell me what you see different in this other copy that I happen to have of this issue. Great first page. I only got as far as the second page for a reason you'll notice almost immediately, I'm guessing. The ink, the black ink, skipped a line right here on this page, but I went and checked the other one, and thankfully it's there. Conan's face. And the dialogue is, we're not going to look at this one today though. It took me a while to decide what to read. I also have Heathen number 1, which I was excited about until I found out what it was about. And then it's like, oh my God, is this all you guys have to push the boundaries in comics? We also have Lucifer number 1. I sold a full set. This was a 9/8 Lucifer that was in a plastic case. Not a CGC case, but a claimed FN 9/8. It's a very nice copy. And this is Mike Carey wrote this. It's not the artist though. And so those are some of the ones I was thinking about doing. You can see what we're going to do right here. But here is a stack of issue number 1s that came out right around the same time as Something is Killing the Children. As I mentioned, this comic paid my rent for quite a long time, and I had about triple the number that I have right here. These are all Folklords number 1. I didn't enjoy being a comic book speculator, but I tell you what, it was rewarding letting comics pay the bills for a little while not being a comic book retailer. And the reason that was possible was because it was obvious to me that the pitch for Something is Killing the Children was a winning pitch. And when I heard that Boom Comics had signed a deal with Netflix, a 3-picture deal for 3 of their series to be developed, I was very much along the lines of everyone else, of the opinion that Something is Killing the Children would most likely be one of the stories adapted. I don't know if that's going to happen or not as a cartoon. It would be nice if it were. Somewhere around here, I have a whole bunch of single-page, 8.5 by 11 storyboards for Something is Killing the Children for a short film I wanted to do. It's essentially just a detective story with a girl who wears a neckerchief, and this came out right before COVID. They got really lucky. They released these neckerchiefs with the original book. This is like a authentic neckerchief. This is not an authentic plushie. I had these made for the short I wanted to make, the short film. And the reason I bring this up, the reason I'm out here talking about comics and movies and cartoons and video games is because, quite simply, I never surrendered to one medium. I don't know if that was a mistake or a good thing. I have a few half-developed video games. I have 2 self-published novels. I have 1 self-published comic book. And if by published, I mean released on the internet for free. I thumbnailed this, and then my best friend from animation school took it and redrew it. He just ran with it. And he brought a lot creatively to the table. He's a much faster artist than I am. He's much more experienced, gifted, talented. His hands, he has a surgeon's hands. I've watched him draw, and the pencil is just, it's unreal how good he is with a pencil. And this comic is better than what I thumbnailed. And in some ways, it wasn't that it's better that broke me. It was the added characters that I'm going to show you here in a couple seconds. I wanted this to be a double-page spread. This should be a double-page spread, this one panel right here. It's that good. But these characters only appear in that one panel. And this is the most, I'm so happy with this. I'm so happy this happened. And I'm proud of it. It's hard to be proud of something that's mostly someone else's work. I'm honored to be attached to this as a PDF here in the description. And I am honored by myself in that I have my self-respect and that I own my characters and that I never bent the knee for anyone, not even myself. I never self-censored. I started these novels right after I quit writing for Marvel Comics in 2004, right before, maybe 2005, before Epic happened, when Bill Gemma was still in charge. I was writing through an intermediary. I had no idea who the editors I was submitting to. I may not have been submitting to editors at all. It may have been just a con. But I was writing for a book that eventually did come out, and I had 2 scripts that were accepted. And when I signed the paperwork and sent it in, I never heard back from them. And it was honestly for the best because I was not happy with the stories that I wrote for Marvel Comics. I was very happy with the pitches that I wrote for them, which they were always very excited by, which I suspect were probably idea farmed to their own writers or by their own writers. I wasn't buying a lot of Marvel Comics at that point, so I wouldn't know if they were stolen. And it wouldn't matter because it's only the execution that counts. Their execution wouldn't compare to mine. I'm really fast and good with writing. I just haven't found the medium, and I'm about to explain why. I haven't found a medium where my work wouldn't be censored. And I'm going to prove it to you by picking up another comic and asking you if I don't know why this never got a successful cartoon. Why was there never a successful Conan the Barbarian, not King Conan, but Conan the Barbarian cartoon? Successful. By successful, I mean more than 2 seasons. They did have one out, a Saturday morning cartoon. It looked like it was done by the guys who did the Rambo cartoon. It was not successful. It was not very good. First thing was, Conan was either training to be a sorcerer or had a sorcerer in his crew. Conan would never have magic in his crew. But ultimately, the reason they never had a successful Conan the Barbarian cartoon is the same reason they were able to have a successful Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. And why the Usagi Yojimbo cartoon didn't happen, because, well, for one thing, they would have needed to do it in Japanese. It would have needed to be made in Japan, and he lives out here. So, but Ninja Turtles happened for the same reason. Ninja Turtles was, I didn't even know I was going to say this. Ninja Turtles was plushie-able. You could turn Ninja Turtles into plushie toys in a way that Batman and Spider-Man and Superman can be done with their bright costumes and colors, and the Hulk and Thor and Iron Man and all the rest of them, in a way that a naked Conan the Barbarian doesn't work. Conan the Barbarian is violent. A plushy Punisher works better than a Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian is too violent for animated television. Tarzan works because Tarzan has Nekima and Numa and Sabor and Tantor. Tantor is the elephant, Nekima is the little monkey, Numa is the lion, Sabor is the panther. So he has all of the jungle animals as supporting cast and characters, and you don't have to show that in the books Tarzan could kill a lion with a rope and a knife. You can't escape that with Conan. You could maybe escape it with Solomon Kane if you did Solomon Kane Vampire Hunter, but I still don't see how. Not as a cartoon, not as a half-an-hour action show. That's the question I'm asking. How do you convert? You don't convert Lucifer to a half-an-hour action cartoon. It's not going to happen. So whether or not a comic property has legs depends on how many other things you can turn it into. A Lucifer video game? Sure, it's called Castlevania. Conan the video game? Yeah, Assassin's Creed is Conan the video game. Tenchu the video game, Ninjas. Batman is Conan the video game. You can do Conan the video game all day long. The problem with Conan the video game is that the people who own the IPs want too much for the license, and then there's not enough left to invest in the development, and not enough left to own the development, and not enough of a royalty to make investing in the development of that IP worthwhile. You can give it its own logo and call it Gears of War, and you don't have to call it Warhammer. So why would I call my stuff somebody else's IP? My video games are perfect for my own IP. I have an IP that's all I need is a pipeline to the fans that works for me and the artists I'm working with, the artists who I know as friends, that we can all publish to quickly and easily and effectively. And along those lines, today we're going to look at Folklords #1. I just read this for the first time today, and I showed you the stack of #1s I have. I think this is basically worthless. I don't know if issues #2 and 3 are valuable in terms of story. This one is just as good as Revival #1. I would go a step further and say this is better than Revival #1. What this really is, excuse me, and I'm just coming to this realization right now, what this really is Harry Potter in inverse. This is an inverse Harry Potter. This is a privileged kid in a medieval times who is having dreams about the future, kind of like John the Revelator in the Bible. And this is his girlfriend, Let me show you a picture of him. She looks very much like Natalie Portman in The Professional with Jean-Luc, or not Jean-Luc, Jean-Luc, I don't know what his name is. Luc Besson made it, and Jean Reno is the actor in it. Durr. It's hard when you don't know what you're going to say, and then you're suddenly supposed to be able to know what you're talking about. This is the main character, if you can see that with the reflection of the lights. So he's dressed in a suit, and he's dressed in a suit for this whole issue. And this is a very cool story. I like this. I didn't look. Matt Smith drew it, and Matt Kint wrote it. And I have this huge selection of cover artists. I love how Boom does its variant covers because I made probably close to $15,000 profit on Something is Killing the Children. I'm not even fucking kidding you. It paid my rent for almost an entire year. That's the one and only time I've made money on comics. That and my issue of Walking Dead #1 that I sold in 2017 when I sold my collection of comics that would have filled the space between us this high. More than that. Bigger and further back and back to this wall. The size of a small car. Some of them had been eaten by bugs because they were stored outside. They didn't get cared for. I never broke into the industry. But I wrote the 2 best stories you will ever listen to. To this day, Game of Thrones pushes a hard... Game of Thrones is close, at least in terms of produced on screen. Tolkien, I only have 2 books. In terms of sci-fi, Altered Carbon is maybe at that level. I don't know anything Mad Max, especially with kids. When you're talking about kids involved, I can't tell you anything that compares to what I've got going on. And I'll tell you about chapter number 2, which is really the second prologue once we're done with this. So this kid right here is getting dressed up in a suit and tie. He's dressed like Angus Young in AC.164, although he's not wearing shorts. I believe that the only reason Hitler lost the war is because he was photographed in short pants. Men over voting age should not wear shorts, and I look great in shorts, but you shouldn't. It's like sandals. You shouldn't be in sandals outside of your own home. What if you have to fight someone? What if you have to kick someone in the face? You should at least be wearing like skating shoes, And I mean the ones with laces, not Vans that flip off your feet. You should not be wearing slip-ons out in public. Real men don't do that. Real men don't wrestle with drug addicts in the street either. So all you Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fans who think you're going to be rolling on the ground at 7-Eleven while his friend kicks you in the back of the neck, or his friend just shoots you. What are you doing at a 7-Eleven anyhow? There's nothing there for you. Energy drinks will give you kidney stones. So these kids right here have to, in the morning, one of their rites of passage for this culture is they have to choose a quest and announce it to the, basically the community. It would almost be like, in Full Metal Jacket, this is when the gunnery sergeant reads off their MOS, what job they're going to go have. This would be kind of like kids at a private school talking about what they want to do when they grow up, what they're going to go for in college. But here they have to do it publicly in front of a large crowd. And backstage, they're all talking to each other about what they're going to do. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so there's a couple things that happen here. This kid, there's a blind ferryman who this kid is friends with. This kid is he's a nice kid. He's friendly with the people that he meets. I know the I don't want to say janitors, but the custodians who come in and clean our building at work by name. You know what I mean? I'm like that. I go the extra. Once I wrote these novels, I understood what it means to be a compassionate person, because suddenly people in my life actually started looking at me a little bit differently. people I didn't know very well thought I must have come from a privileged background, and God, life must be easy for you if you're that smart. I can't even blah, blah, blah. And the problem is that they say, I can't even blah, blah, blah. That's, if I could teach anyone anything, it's you can. I mean, as lame as that is, you know, you are capable of a lot more than you think yourself capable of. One time on this channel, I was going to talk about having grown up in the winter outside Chicago and being in high school wrestling, what I learned, blah, blah, blah. One of the things I learned was running to the bus. The bus would pick me up wherever it met me along the highway. And so I would run through the snow. Literally, it wasn't uphill, but it was running through the snow at 4 a.m. And when you have to do that, it's a lot less fun than when you want to do that. And when I say have to, I mean because it keeps you warm, because it's really cold out. The other nights it was kind of warm out. And yeah, you could run through the snow because you've got power and blah, blah, blah. But now it's freezing cold, and if you don't run, you're going to be paying for it when you get on the bus. That's an entirely different sort of feeling. So here he is with his Lilith. I don't know what her name is. Kaya. I'm sure I read it, but I don't remember it. And they are talking about what their quest is, and I guess she already did this. She's like a year older than them, or she already achieved her quest somehow. And I remember they say what it is. It didn't sound very challenging. So anyhow, here he is dreaming. He's basically dreaming he's the Sandman from the DC Vertigo comics. But this is Boom. This is Boom Studios. It says so right there. But he's basically dreaming he's in World War One or England, World War One England, essentially. He's got a wristwatch and whatnot, and a revolver. And here he is. He wakes up late the next day. He promises the ferryman an extra goat shepherd's pie. Goat meat pie, basically, shepherd's pie. And here he is running up to the event, which is going on. And there are all sorts of people in this culture. And one of the sorts of people are elves with very fair hair and light green skin. And this elf is named Archer. And he didn't know what he wanted to choose as a quest. And he's in line right before this kid. And he says this kid's quest. And this kid's quest is to go find the Folklords, because he believes they will know how to reach the land in his dreams, which he is convinced is real. I have a story like this, but it's really about dream trolls kidnapping children while they sleep and making them do slave labor. 70 years of slave labor in a single 70 years of slave labor in a single night's sleep. And that's a little bit different. But this kid is convinced that this is true, and that if he finds the Folklords, they will show him how to do it. But no one's allowed. The Folklords are those who will not be named. They are basically Voldemort. Did not see Voldemort. And so this kid steals his homie's quest, which is to find the Folklords. And when he does that, these red cats come out and seize him by the neck with a special, I think I had this cover and sold it because it was worth a lot of money. Or maybe I still do have it, but I think I sold it. I didn't see it when we just went through it right now. And they seize him by the neck and they say, you have to come with us. You cannot be saying you're going to do this. And then, not only do they drag him out, but they shut down the event. They cancel everyone's quests. And they hand out quests at the door like Tyler Durden giving out homework assignments. Pick a fight with someone and lose. That's basically Project Mayhem. All these kids don't get to choose their own quest. It's going to be chosen for them. This kid says, I ain't having it. I ain't afraid of you. I'm going anyhow. This is just a test. And he gets to the edge of town and finds his homie is already there. And he's like, dude, what's up? And the kid is like, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know what to say. And he's like, don't worry, we're going. He's like, okay, we're going. This kid goes with him. And then the red people are watching them. So this is like a test. They want to see how much resolve they've got. This is sort of like the Tai Chi temple, Kung Fu temple test where they mess with you for a few days before they let you in. And they meet this guardian out there, and the guardian says, where do you think you're going? And they make up some story, and the guardian's actually kind of disappointed they lied to him, but he's glad that they go anyhow. He kind of wishes they had the balls to just say, we're going on the quest, bitch. It's obvious that he wishes that was the case, and they're going anyhow. And then here we see Shakespeare's hand at the end. Obviously, this has sort of that Neil Gaiman Shakespearean Sandman-esque storyline written all over it. I don't know if the next issues will be just as good as this one. This isn't great, but this is a made-for-kids cartoon. Descender is a made-for-kids cartoon. X-Men is not. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is not. The Crow was not. Those things were not made-for-kids cartoons, but they had enough, and I'm going to use this phrase wrong, but I'm going to use it as a white person who speaks English. They had enough je ne sais quoi, enough what life is worth living, what makes life worth living, to allow them to be crushed into a little kid plushy story. She has exactly what my story is. Ashley Fox Ninja Babysitter. You can crush Erica Slaughter into literally a ninja babysitter. Ninja babysitter? That's retarded. Who would want a ninja babysitter? Who wouldn't want a ninja babysitter? Ninja babysitter is the best fucking babysitter you could have. They're obviously disciplined. They know their shit. They can teach your kids something. They can teach your kids discipline. Your kids will respect them. And if the bad guys come and steal your kids because you're a corrupt government official, ninja babysitter's got your back. So, in that I know whereof I speak, let's talk about Legacy of a Mad Scientist, Prologue Part 2, Bleeding Metal. Now, I didn't bring in the Micronics is a black metal amplifier made of metal called Tellurium. Tellurium is what they use to do anti-gravity air travel in the future. The two magnets that bounce over the top of each other. So that's basically how Tellurium works. And like electromagnets. Only it can also balance over the Earth's gravity. So you have a Tellurium cable that's synced with the Earth, and then you have vehicles that can travel over the top of it. And Dr. Fox also discovers how to use the Tellurium. Basically, the way metal oxidizes or rusts is giving off little particles of metal into the atmosphere. Some metals pollute the atmosphere at a greater rate than others. For example, radioactive metals are bleeding off little particles at an extreme rate of speed in every direction, right? So this metal Tellurium is capable of bonding with anti-gravity metal. It's called T256 because it forms a square structure, but only half of a cube. You need 512 in terms of qubits to make a perfect square. 256 only gets you a four-sided square, but half the height, right? Like not a full height. But it can bond to antimatter and present as a full cube. So basically, it's the first antimatter alloy. T256 is of course really unstable at that density, but because it doubles in size as an antimatter sort of alloy, you get Tellurium. And the way it works is it's got a bulletproof skin where all the electrons fuse together, kind of like glass or any crystal, as the shell, as they reach oxygen, as they reach expansion, basically expansion point. A friend of mine told me, dude, all you really have is a neutron star. But the point is, for science fiction, what he has is a metal that saturates the air around him, and he can communicate with it wirelessly. It can communicate to the forebrain wirelessly. Now, part of the way I came up with this was back in the 90s, I heard about a DARPA program where they can drill a hole in the side of your head and wire electrodes into the optic nerve and basically put a camera, a small camera, in a pair of sunglasses, run the cables down to a computer in a fanny pack around your waist, and then run cables back up to twin imports to each side of the brain. It costs about $120,000 per eye. This must have been the early 2000s, because they were already talking about, no, it might have been the first Iraq war, and the IEDs that were blowing sand and rocks up in soldiers' eyes, where the helmet acted as a cup and funneled it all right into their eyes. So they were able to do this back then, and that's basically Predator. You can sync. That means you can put a camera attached to the eyeball or attached to the optic nerves, and the camera can record what you're looking at, what you're focused on, and then feed that to a firing mechanism. Feed that to a tracking firing camera. And whatever they can film with a camera, they can feed into your head. So thermal, night vision, whatever, anything they want. Hallucinations, the whole Matrix thing. So that's the idea of chapter 2, is he's got this amplifier, and it's illegal. It's illegal because the government says, whatever you're working on, if you're employed by the government, we have to be informed about it. And if you're employed by the government, we basically own it. It's sort of like when you're going to college. I went to art school, I went to animation school. And if you were using the school, if you used basically the school equipment to make a student film, and it went to Cannes, and it made you rich, the school, you can bet your butt, the school is going to want a piece of the money and a piece of the IP. You'd be lucky to get away with 51%. They're going to claim that. They own that. It's in all the paperwork. So it's kind of like if you work at a studio and make a film using their film, it's a little bit different now, digital and whatnot, but people don't look kindly on that. So my point is that this lends itself too well to being a cartoon. Calvin and Hobbes probably is the single most best unrealized cartoon of all time. Garfield may have been over-realized. Ninja Turtles is probably also, Ninja Turtles is the best realized, I think, for independent work to become successful. When you think about all the money that Marvel sunk into Spider-Man, how many times did Marvel go bankrupt before Tobey Maguire played Spider-Man? Dozens, maybe not dozens, a handful, 4 or 5, that's a lot. That's not counting Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man or any Spider-Man cartoons. But if cartoons are the goal, if a cartoon is the goal of a comic, then we're still waiting for Conan. We really are still waiting for the definitive Conan the Barbarian work. I don't think anyone would agree that as good as the Arnold version was, that was not the definitive Conan. I think we're still waiting for it. I don't think we've seen it. Jason Momoa was really close. Jason Momoa was almost more Conan in Game of Thrones than he was in Conan the Barbarian. So what's my point? Would my stuff make a perfect cartoon? I don't know. It definitely has legs. When you do angels versus demons and you do we have, there's a double page spread of all these angels I've been basically coloring the last few days. And when you do a woman who sacrifices her own life to save the life of a child gets promoted to Valkyrie in the afterlife. So if you're commissioned to protect or to babysit children, don't a moment's distraction, be diligent, because a moment's distraction can rob you of the chance to enter heaven as the greatest of all heroes, of Valkyrie. That's got legs. I can do that forever. As a video game, as a comic book, as a novel, I can tell that story over and over and over again. It's like the Matrix, just with gods and demons, with angels instead of computers. And I don't know, it seems like a winner to me. See you guys tomorrow.